Hello, we're going to upgrade this Python console game project so that it makes use of different emojis. Currently, when we run the program, there's a little mouse emoji that you can move around with the arrow keys. By skimming over the code, you can quickly see that there's a cheat sheet available, which I'm going to copy and paste. There were videos and edpuzzles perhaps relating to emojis and this way of using emojis in a Python program that you could watch for further reference. But one of the emojis, for example, is, heart eyes right here when I'm waving my mouse. That might be one we choose to use instead of a mouse, heart eyes. Well, anyway, back to the code. To make that change, I'm going to scroll down to the area that just seems like it's the area according to the grayed out but important hashtag comments, approximately line number 75. By uncommenting out and removing the hashtag on line 77, poop overrides mouse, so that when I stop and run this program again, the player is really a poop emoji because that mouse was overwritten by the line of code that's below it. It's really unnecessary now to have mouse in there, so I could either delete that whole line of code, or I could simply right now put a hashtag in front of the P, which turns everything to the right of it and neutralizes it. And now I'm left with just the poop specification there for my emoji that's currently in use. And that piece of poop, I guess, could be moved around. Poop requires the comma use aliases equals true. Well, from that cheat sheet of other emojis, heart eyes may or may not need that uses aliases equals true. Changing poop to heart eyes, running the program, it doesn't really hurt to have the use aliases equals true because it worked. Even when you don't need use aliases equals true, like for mouse right here, you can always add it to be better safe than sorry. So feel free to change emojis in this project. Other upgrades as far as your emojis go. Way down the code window, there is a special area that you'll find called cheat codes. Right here, currently on line 202. If C is inputted by the user when he or she runs the program, the player that we've been talking about turns into a cat emoji. Now notice the indentation here, and notice just the correct spelling of user input with a capital I, and everything else that's here on lines 203 and 204. Later in the school year, we study what are called if statements. But right now, you can have some fun with this with just copy and paste. So by highlighting that code and holding down Command-C or Control-C on your Windows or Mac keyboard, I don't recommend working with an iPad for this unless you really have to. And by finding some area where you can paste, perhaps on line 208, but first make room by hitting the Enter key a bunch of times, and get your cursor into a nice little area in the middle of that white space. And now do Command-V on the keyboard to paste. I've essentially copied these two lines of code into these two lines of code, but now you can pick something like another animal like dog, D for dog. No, D is used for moving the arrow, the player to the right. So we can't use D, but there's a G in dog, so I'm going to use a G for dog. That's just the way it has to be. I usually stay away from vowels, but the hard consonant G sound, and then changing cat to dog without even looking it up on the cheat sheet, because I'm sure there's a dog emoji, and it probably does not need the optional use aliases equals true. Running the program, knowing that these were cheat codes that only if a C was pressed would it change to a cat. In this case, when I'm moving my smiley face around, if I hit the G on the keyboard, it does correctly change me to a dog. C for a cat, P for poop, but there is no way to get back to the original, which in this case was smiling eyes or something. So that's something that you could probably figure out how to change with yet another if statement. I fool you not, or I kid you not. There will be students that with 3 or 4 days of time to work on this project will have pretty much every letter from A to Z implemented as a cheat code for different emojis. And the sky is the limit, and that's how you get an A or A plus on a project like this. By not just doing the minimum, but here are the ways that you could accidentally mess it up. And if you can't get help from your teacher like me or another student in the meantime, especially in the hybrid virtual learning era that we're in, here are some common mistakes that people might have. If you don't indent that second line of code under if, like the P in player, it won't work. Watch. I run the program and it gives me an indentation error. So the P in player there needs to be indented, preferably lined up with the P's in player in those matching if statements. Another way to mess this up would be to use a capital G instead of a lowercase g, in which case when I run the program, hitting the G key will not change my emoji there because I'd have to hold down Shift G, and that's what changes it. So by using the Shift for capital letters, you actually could add 50 or more emojis, or at least a lot more than 3. So those are some common mistakes. Other people might forget a parenthesis or two. Maybe they'll copy and paste. They'll put an extra space maybe in with the letters there inside the double quotes. There's a lot of ways to mess it up, of course. Code must be typed exactly. Computers are not nearly as smart as your average or even any 1-year-old, let alone a 14, 15-year-old that often is taking this class. Okay, that's a wrap, and have a great day.